a very dark and stormy night here, and if you're like me, that makes you want to watch some spooky ghost stories. Tonight I want to talk to you about 10 ghostly films for your next haunting movie night. Welcome to the Cobwebs channel, everyone. My name is Daniel, and these films are not necessarily the best or the scariest ghost films of all time, but I think they are the perfect movies for pouring a hot beverage, getting under a warm, heavy blanket, and being reminded that there are things that go bump in the night.
There are such things.
The Woman in Black from 2012 is about a young lawyer who is ordered to go to a remote village and sort out a recently deceased client's papers. As he works alone in the client's isolated home, he begins to uncover tragic secrets and catches glimpses of a mysterious woman dressed only in black. It was directed by James Watkins and stars Daniel Radcliffe in one of his early post-Harry Potter roles. And this is actually a Hammer film. Yes, that Hammer that made all the Hammer horror Dracula and Frankenstein movies did produce this movie, and this is an absolutely beautiful period piece ghost story. Period pieces is something we're going to be looking for a lot on this list. I just think there's just something so great on a dark and stormy night like this about watching a movie that takes place in the distant past. And the look and vibe of this movie is by far the best thing about it. Now, it was actually filmed on location in England, and the exterior shots of the mansion were filmed at Cotterstock Hall in the UK, and this mansion is just an unbelievably great spooky vibe. I mean, this is like an ultimate haunted house to be trapped in all by yourself. Now, the scares are actually my least favorite thing about it. While I do really like the Woman in Black herself, she has a great look and a great backstory. A big theme of a lot of the movies we're going to talk about today are mysteries, where a protagonist has to discover the backstory of the ghost, why they're still haunting a place, how their spirit can be put to rest. That's going to be a lot of these movies. And I like all that. This movie has a really dark story to it, very, very bleak. But the scares are honestly they're very Hollywood. It's things jumping out at you, big loud music scenes, scary faces like that. And that kind of stuff doesn't scare me. Ghost movies have the highest potential to scare me of any horror subgenre. The Woman in Black doesn't do it for me, but the look, the period recreation, I love the town that surrounds this haunted mansion and how all the villagers live in absolute terror of it and want to get him out of town as fast as possible in case he stirs the spirit back up. And I love the supporting cast too. Ciarán Hinds might be my favorite performance in the movie. That actor just has a great look and he's just so good in this movie. The Woman in Black, I highly recommend it for a dark and spooky ghost story.
A curse of the dead hand.
And now the screaming starts from 1973. Takes place in 1795 about two newlyweds who move into the stately mansion of husband Charles Fenn-Griffin. The bride Catherine begins to see ghosts and feel attacked by them, while Charles withholds a dark secret. This is based on a book called Fenn-Griffin by David Case. I completely understand why they changed that title, and now the screaming starts. It's just such a great 70s exploitation kind of a title. And this movie is actually an Amicus film. Amicus was famous for making a lot of anthology horror films around this time period, but this is just a normal movie and a really good haunted house film. This is one I actually just watched for the first time and super enjoyed. Now, it's just got such a great old-fashioned haunted house kind of a look, taking place in the late 1700s. The large Gothic house used in this film is Oakley Court near Bray Village, which is now a 4-star hotel. I mean, oh my gosh, can you imagine getting to go stay in the house and now the screaming starts? Now, the ghost in this film is pretty creepy, a pretty active and combative ghost that is just all out for some horrible revenge. Has a great look with eyes missing and a missing hand, attacking Catherine, all while her husband won't tell her the dark secrets of this house. And the first half of this movie, your mileage may vary with it a bit because it is a lot of Catherine experiencing something crazy, telling the husband about it. No one will tell her what's going on, and then she faints and the doctor comes, and it's kind of that over and over again. And I didn't mind it personally. I liked the movie the whole way through, but I'm just saying the second half is definitely what you want to stick around for, because that's when Peter Cushing enters the film. The movie just has a really good cast in general. The husband is Ian Ogilvy from Witchfinder General. The wife is Stephanie Beacham from Dracula AD 1972. And then it's also got Guy Rolfe and Patrick McGee. But Peter Cushing, I mean, he is the best here. He comes in as this doctor to help out the troubled mind of the wife. But instead of trying to act like a psychiatrist, he figures out, I think there's some ghostly stuff in here and I need to investigate. And he goes into Van Helsing mode, and he's just so great in this movie. This is a ghost film with a super dark backstory. Like the backstory of this movie, it might be the most disturbing thing you'll see in any of these movies, which is funny because this is one of the oldest films on the list. A great look and vibe and cast, and the end of this movie has some stuff that I have never seen in a movie before, so please stick around to see the crazy ending. A Chinese Ghost Story from 1987 is about a humble tax collector who arrives in a small town for business, but because no one is willing to give him shelter for the night, he ends up in a haunted temple and meets a swordsman and a beautiful, mysterious woman with whom he falls in love. This is one of the most classic Hong Kong horror films. It's based on a short story, but it was also adapted as The Enchanting Shadow, which was a Shaw Brothers film from the past. But this is definitely the most classic version. And ultimately what it is a romance film between a man and a woman who's a ghost. And the movie tells you she's a ghost right away, so it's totally cool to know that going in. And it's actually a very good romance film, a very romantic movie. The ghost, you really feel for her. She's got very interesting ghostly powers, and it definitely does some terrible ghostly things towards the beginning of the movie, but it's really her heart being softened by this guy. It's definitely a good emotional film, but it's also got the horror where it counts. It's revealed very early in the movie that there are some victims of ghostly happenings in this place, and they're like these stop motion effect zombies that are so cool. I love getting to see something like that in a ghost movie. And it's also got some good action. I mean, a lot of Hong Kong horror films throw action and martial arts in there too, which just makes them a very unique and interesting flavor. And this movie's definitely got that as well. This is just a ghost film with good romance, good characters, definitely a good period piece vibe to this one as well. It's not a super easy movie to get a hold of, and it's not officially available on streaming anywhere, but I highly recommend figuring out a way to see A Chinese Ghost Story.
Who are you talking to?
A Haunting in Venice from 2023 is about legendary detective Hercule Poirot, who is now retired and living in Venice, but he reluctantly attends a Halloween seance at a decaying haunted mansion. When one of the guests is murdered, the detective must solve both the case and the mysteries of the supernatural. So this is the third film in what is, at least so far, a trilogy by Kenneth Branagh, in which he directs and stars in Agatha Christie adaptations of her stories about legendary detective Hercule Poirot, and he plays the character so well. I mean, the dude has just got a mustache to destroy the world. This is a mustache of legend. I just love it. Now, the previous two films in this series were Death on the Nile and Murder on the Orient Express. And I'll be honest, I didn't think either of those were that great. I thought they were just kind of okay. But Haunting in Venice definitely took things to the next level. I found this movie way more enjoyable and entertaining. First of all, it's just got an ultimate haunted house kind of atmosphere to it. It wasn't filmed on location or anything. It was filmed at Pinewood Studios, but the set that they built, both for the outside and the inside, it just looks incredible. Like, this is a movie with a very vintage kind of Halloween atmosphere, because it is a Halloween film, but they didn't modernize Halloween at all. It very much looks like a 1930s, 40s kind of version of Halloween with the costumes and the decorations and the tradition of performing a seance. I really like the supporting cast around Kenneth Branagh, like Tina Fey, Kelly Riley, Jamie Dornan, and Michelle Yeoh as the one who performs the seance. This is a very old-fashioned movie, and I mean that in a really good way. It's such a throwback to a cozy little ghost story, and I really like how this movie handles the question of, are there ghosts? Is there the supernatural in the world of Hercule Poirot?
Mary, we invite you into our circle. If that's you, blow out the candles.
Ouija, Origin of Evil from 2016 takes place in 1967 Los Angeles about a widowed mother and her two daughters who add a new stunt to boost their seance scam business and unwittingly invite authentic spiritual evil into their home. So this is actually a sequel, or I guess you could say prequel, to the 2014 horror film Ouija, which I've heard is just a terrible teen horror movie. I never even saw it, to be honest, but I saw this one because it's directed by Mike Flanagan, who's probably my favorite horror director working today, made incredible things like Dr. Sleep and The Haunting of Hill House and Hush. Just awesome movies and TV shows. And he made this prequel to a horror movie that's supposedly terrible, and he did an incredible job. He cited The Changeling as a big influence, and he tried to film the movie as if it was really made in the 1960s, 70s. Now, it was shot digitally, but they did a lot in post to like really make this look very old-fashioned, very much like film. They even added fake cigarette burns to the film sometimes, which you can just call like pointless nostalgia if you want, but I just really love the vibe this movie put out. It looks so authentic to the 1960s. It's so great. It stars Elizabeth Reeser and Henry Thomas, two actors that Mike Flanagan works with a lot, and they're both phenomenal in this movie. I love Henry Thomas as the priest who's trying to help them out. He has so much more character than just the priest character usually does in like possession haunting movies like this. A genuinely creepy ghost film involving Ouija boards, of course, Ouija seance sequences, love that kind of stuff in movies. And it's very intense. Like, I gotta say, when I get to near the end of this movie, I'm like, oh my gosh, anything can happen. And you get to care about the characters so much that makes it feel even more intense. If you passed on Ouija Origin of Evil because it's a prequel to a bad movie and it has a really generic looking cover, like, I can't recommend enough. Seek this movie out. If you like old-fashioned ghost stories, I think you'll love this. The Uninvited from 1944 is about a brother and sister who move into an old seaside house that's been abandoned for years, only to discover that it is haunted by the ghost of the mother of their neighbor's beautiful granddaughter, with whom the brother has fallen in love. Now, if you're really looking for a ghost movie for a stormy night, yeah, the storm is definitely still raging outside. But if you're looking for that, I think black and white ghost films, that might be the best way to go. And there are a lot of great options, but I think The Uninvited is my very favorite. This is such a sweet and emotional story for a horror film. At the center of it is both the story of a girl's relationship with her deceased mother and the story of her romance with Ray Milland. Ray Milland is the male star, and this girl is played by Gail Russell. They are both fantastic in this movie. Unfortunately, Gail Russell had a really hard time making this movie. She was inexperienced and very nervous, but somehow she pulled it off beautifully. I think she is just incredibly charming and sympathetic in this movie. There's so much beautiful music in the film too, which really adds to the atmosphere. The movie wasn't shot on location anywhere. It was just filmed on studios, as most everything was in the 1940s. But the music, man, it just adds so much. There's this song called Stella by Starlight that the brother writes in the film, and it's now a classic song. A lot of people have covered that song at this point. It's also a movie that's kind of historically significant because while there had been ghost films in the past, they were usually comedies, and they were usually Scooby-Doo like mysteries where you're trying to figure out like who's pretending to be a ghost to commit some sort of crime. But The Uninvited takes a bold stance. There are ghosts. There are things that go bump in the night.
There are such things.
And there is no hoax to be found in this movie, and I love that. Good seance sequences. You do get to see ghostly apparitions, which are very cool. There's a lot of really fun things to discover in this very emotional movie. I love The Uninvited so much. The Awakening from 2011 takes place in post-World War I England and is about a writer and sometimes ghost hunter who investigates a reported haunting at a boys' boarding school. I just discovered this movie and just watched it for the first time, and this is seriously one of my favorite discoveries of the year. I love this movie so much. I can't even tell you how much it blew me away. Now, it stars Rebecca Hall in the lead role, and I think there's just no question Rebecca Hall is one of the greatest actresses of all time. Like, she has just proven herself to be incredible incredible over and over again. She was also great in The Night House, which is a more recent ghost film that I would also recommend, but not quite as much as The Awakening. Now, this is another one with absolutely stunning period piece atmosphere. She goes to this boarding school. It is very spooky. The movie was filmed on location in the UK, including at a beautiful estate called the Manderson House. The locations in this film are just out of this world. But this isn't just a ghost hunting movie. Now, it is a really good ghost hunting movie because Rebecca Hall is not a believer. She's really an exposer of hoaxes. And she comes in like fully prepared to be like, well, let's figure out which one of these kids is committing pranks. And she might just find some surprises all around all of the dark and spooky corners. So it is a good ghost film with very creepy sequences, a very creepy ghost boy in this. But the film is also a gothic romance film. There's a man who's played by Dominic West who works at the school and actually gets her to come out and help with the ghost problem. And as good as Rebecca Hall is, Dominic West might upstage her. He is incredible. This is the best performance I have ever seen from him by far. The character has a bit of a stutter, and that's actually never addressed or acknowledged by anyone in the movie, which makes me think it wasn't in the script and he just kind of came up with it. But I think it was such a good idea because it made this very handsome and strong-looking man much more vulnerable and sympathetic. And the very gothic romance that happens between them, I mean, I think this is one of the best movies I've seen in a long time for establishing very subtle sexual tension. Like, it's really, really good at that. I was super impressed by how these two actors pulled that off in such small ways. It is a great movie for character, for story, for atmosphere, for scares, for a very intense ending where I felt like I had no idea where this thing was going to go. I love The Awakening. I can't recommend it enough.
The Changeling, an experience beyond total fear.
The Changeling from 1980 picks up after a horrifically tragic event that happens to the family of composer John Russell. He moves to a lonely old house to try to overcome it and build a new, peaceful life for himself. But soon after, the dark history of the mansion begins to haunt him. Now, this is actually based on real experiences that playwright Russell Hunter said that he had in a house that he moved into. And here, George C. Scott plays John Russell, not too subtly, supposed to be Russell Hunter, who's experiencing these very ghostly happenings in this giant, absolutely gorgeous mansion that he moves into. And this is a very creepy movie. I mean, it's got seriously creepy sequences to it, much involving a rubber ball. They so well use just a rubber ball to just scare the pants off of you. But this is another one that is a very emotional film and a perfect character piece because George C. Scott in the lead role, I mean, he is just incredible. George C. Scott, he's just one of my favorite, unlikely leading men. He doesn't look like a leading man. He doesn't really act like one, but he is so compelling. I am just fascinated anytime I see George C. Scott on screen. He is incredible in this film. It's so much at portraying grief in a very subtle way, never overplaying it, never being more dramatic than a strong, composed, mature man like this probably would be.
I was just thinking about my daughter, Kathy. How much she loved horses.
The movie was largely filmed in Canada, and actually the exteriors of the haunted house were just a facade that they built in front of a real house, and it looks so good. It's such a cool looking spooky mansion. Unlike a lot of the movies on this list, this one isn't a period piece, but because it's about a college professor, classical musician, it has a very old-fashioned kind of a look to it, and a lot of really beautiful classical music throughout because of the main character's profession. Really love all that stuff. And it's got some good snowy scenes. Director Peter Medic did an incredible job with this. This is absolutely one of my favorite ghost films of all time.
This is KB Antonio Bay. Stevie Wayne here, and let me be the first to wish Antonio Bay a happy birthday.
The Fog from 1980 is about a small coastal town called Antonio Bay that prepares to commemorate its 100-year anniversary. The local reverend stumbles upon a dark secret about the town's founding as a mysterious fog descends upon the village, bringing vengeful spirits. The Fog is John Carpenter's follow-up to his iconic classic Halloween, and man, some days I think, maybe do I like this better than Halloween? It's close. I could not love this movie more. John Carpenter is actually my favorite director of all time, so I'm already primed to love his movie so much, but this is one of my absolute favorites. This is one of the best movies about a small little spooky town. I love creepy town movies where they uncover a dark secret of the town and how it's coming back to haunt the current residents, and this is a perfect example of that. John Carpenter is Carpenter's main inspiration for like the look and the feel of this movie was actually Val Lewton. Val Lewton made movies like Cat People and I Walked with a Zombie, classic 1940s films, and he really wanted to use like shadows and suggestion to really make this movie creepy. Now, that being said, when they first screened the finished product of this movie, they realized it didn't work, and they went back and reshot some gory death scenes to kind of put in it to give the movie a little blood pumping in its veins. And I think that was actually a really good idea because the death sequences are awesome in this movie, and they're an excuse to see the ghost pirates a little bit more. And these are some of my favorite like visual representations of a ghost of all time. The ghosts look awesome with the glowing eyes and just the fact that they're pirates with swords. I mean, that is just awesome. The movie is like a who's who of John Carpenter regulars. It's got Tom Atkins, it's got Jamie Lee Curtis, and Jamie Lee Curtis's mom, Janet Leigh from Psycho, Hal Holbrook, but Adrienne Barbeau probably in the lead role and probably the most memorable person in the movie because she is the DJ and her late night radio show sounds are going over most of the movie and creates such an incredible atmosphere along with John Carpenter's score. So this is undoubtedly one of the most atmospheric ghost stories of all time. And the fact that it opens up with a man telling a ghost story to a group of kids around a campfire, you cannot ask for better vibes than that. You might think you can, but you cannot.
There's someone there.
The Others from 2001 is about a religious woman who lives in an old mansion kept in darkness because her two children have a rare sensitivity to light. When the family begins to suspect the house is haunted, Grace fights to protect her children at any cost. This is actually a movie that I saw back in my around teenage years. I remember not thinking that much of it, just being like, whatever. And then I rewatched it for the first time last year, and I thought, this is like one of the best horror films I've ever seen. What was I thinking? Probably just because it's a more mature horror film about a mother, so much about the feelings of parenthood and just trying to protect your kids when your kids are so difficult to protect because their sensitivity of light sort of turns her into a ship captain who is running her house like a prison or something, trying to block out all the light, keep it in darkness so her children can't survive. And it makes her such an interesting character. She's played by Nicole Kidman, by the way. I don't think I've even mentioned that, and oh my gosh, she's amazing. But this movie is like one of the best looking films I have ever seen. I cannot believe the atmosphere of this. Despite taking place in England, it was largely filmed in Spain, but not just the house, but the surroundings, the grounds, the ever-present fog that rolls over everywhere. This is an incredibly gloomy movie in such a great way, and it has got super creepy sequences. I think this is a movie you can watch with most anybody, whether they like horror films or not. It's not too gruesome, and I think the scares are just the right kind of scares to send a little chill down your spine, not disturb you, but just give you those like spooky feelings that you're probably really craving on a dark and stormy night like this. I could not love The Others more. It's amazing. It is a perfect film for a stormy night. So that's my list, but I would love more recommendations. So let me know down in the comments below what movies do you like to watch when the thunder is rumbling and the rain is hitting the window. Give a like and a subscribe if you did enjoy this video. You can check out this stuff right over here if you want more videos like this. Thank you all so much. Don't forget to enjoy yourself tonight. Listen for the ghosts, and I'll see you next time.